Hello everyone, this is Dr. Shaheen. Today we are discussing on object-oriented programming. So the basic concepts of OOPS we'll be discussing in this video. Before that, let us go through the evaluation of programming paradigms. So initially we had structured programming, which consists of large programming projects where focus is on algorithm rather than the data, and they divide the programs into procedures. Each procedure will have a specific task and each procedure is independent of each other, and they can have their local data and logic in each of this procedure. Then we have facility to pass parameter between the procedures, and then we call them as user defined data types, and which supports modular programming. And this project will be divided into multiple modules and each module will be programmed independently. So here the scope of the item is controlled across the modules. So this is a next version of procedure oriented language, quite costlier. Next comes our object-oriented programming language. This is a method in which our programs are organized as objects and which represents the instance of some class, and class are all members of hierarchy of classes which are united through a property called inheritance. So it consists of major two activities. One is encapsulation and object identity, and some of the examples are object-based features. So in our OOPS language, we have inheritance and polymorphism. Examples are Smalltalk, Java, IOFIL, C++, etc. So coming to our C++, this was developed by Jarny Stroustrup at AT&T Bell Laboratories in USA. This is the next version, improved version of C program. So before we start in detail about object-oriented programming, let us also discuss the different paradigms for problem solving. So here imperative, generally we say the paradigms can be distinguished as imperative programming paradigm and declarative programming paradigm. With imperative programming paradigm, we have procedure oriented programming, object oriented programming and parallel processing approach. Whereas with declarative program paradigm, we have logic programming, functional programming and database processing approach. So generally paradigm is a method to solve some problem or it can do some task. So programming paradigm is it is an approach to solve the problem using programming language. So with imperative programming, it will be based on von Neumann architecture, that is the data and program together will be stored in the same memory, and it performs step-by-step tasks to achieve the goal. So after execution of all statements, the result will be stored. The advantage of this imperative programming paradigm is it is simple to implement and it contains loops and variables. Whereas the disadvantages are it is that is the complex programs cannot be solved using this method and it is quite less efficient. Also parallel programming is not possible with this approach. Next comes our procedural programming. So in this we have the ability to reuse the code. Example is our C programming where we use the concepts of functions. And the next one is object oriented programming. Here we have collection of classes and objects for common use and the smallest and basic entity is the object. Here more emphasis is on data rather than procedure, and advantages are we have data security, inheritance. With inheritance we are able to reuse the data and abstraction. Then comes the parallel processing approach. In this approach, we have processing of programming instructions by dividing them among the multiple processes. This follows divide and conquer approach. Example is NESL and C++. So these are the overview of imperative programming. Coming to declarative programming paradigm. In declarative, we are focusing on more of what to do rather than how to do. So it expresses the logic of computation without talking about its control flow. So we have logic programming here, that is abstract model of computation, example puzzles, series, etc. Then we have functional programming, which is an independent language such as Perl, JavaScript, etc. Then final one is the database driven approach where everything is based on data and its movement. Example is SQL. So with object-oriented programming, it treats data as critical element, and here as we discussed, the emphasis is more on data rather than algorithm. And here also we decompose the problem into number of entities, and it does not allow data to flow freely around the system. So that is called abstraction, and data is hidden and cannot be accessed by any external function. So data and function are binded together in a data structure format, and objects may be used to communicate through other functions, and new data and function can be added whenever we require. So procedure-oriented programming follows top-down approach, whereas object-oriented programming follows bottom-up approach. So the major difference between object-oriented programming and procedure-oriented programming is procedure-oriented can also be referred as structure-oriented programming. With procedure-oriented, program is divided into objects. With structured programming, program is divided into functions. So object-oriented follows bottom-up approach. Structure-oriented approach follows top-down approach. Inheritance property is allowed is in whereas in object-oriented programming, sorry, project procedure-oriented programming, inheritance is not allowed. The use of access specifier is denied in structure-oriented programming, whereas it is allowed in object-oriented programming. Encapsulation is also available in object-oriented programming. There is no data hiding in structure-oriented programming. Similarly, virtual function concept is available in object-oriented programming, whereas it is not available in structure-oriented programming. The best examples for object-oriented programming are C++ and Java, whereas for structure-oriented, C and Pascal are the suitable examples. Before we start the basics of object-oriented programming, let us go through the need for object-oriented paradigm. So, programming paradigm is based on objects, that is data and methods, that aims to incorporate the advantage of modularity and reusability. So, objects are instance of classes. So, in that, the features, basic features of and the need of OOPS paradigm are, they are follow bottom-up approach. Program is organized around objects and they are grouped in class. So focus is on data with methods to operate upon the objects data. Interaction between objects through functions. Reusability of design through creating new class by adding features to existing class. So this certain examples are C++, Java, Python, Ruby, PHP, etc. Now coming to the basic concepts of object-oriented programming. These are the essential characteristics and attributes of OOPS. The first and foremost thing is object, next is class, then data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, dynamic binding and message passing. Coming to objects, it is the instance of a class. We refer them as the instance of a class. For example, name of a person. That is an object. Object is an identifiable entity with some behavior. So objects are the basic runtime entities in an object-oriented system. And we can also say that objects are variables of type class. So the object can be anything which is physically present, that is student, employee, car, book, etc. So this is the representation of an object. It can have any number of attributes and operation. Coming to class. So class is the blueprint for any functional entity which defines its properties and its function. For example, if a human body is having body parts and perform various actions, then you can represent them as a class. So object is an identifiable entity with some behavior. When a class is defined, no memory is allocated. But when it is instantiated, objects are created and memory is allocated. So this is very important. So class is a user-defined data type. It has collection of data members and member functions. Variables declared in class and are called as data members, and functions are declared in the class and they are referred as member functions. So this is abstraction of real world entities with similar properties. They identify set of similar properties and they are implemented as abstract data type. Coming to data abstraction. So this refers to displays only essential information and hiding the background details. That is the concept of data abstraction. So when we use abstraction, it is an act of representing essential features without including the background details or explanations. So classes use this concept of abstraction, and they have when you declare a class, we say about what is the need of the class, and we'll not be saying how the class is implemented, how it is being retrieved, how the information is passed. All these background details are denied or not revealed to outside environment. That is the concept of data abstraction. Next is encapsulation. This is wrapping up of data and functions under a single unit. So this hides the data. That is, when you declare a class and you have some information inside that class, that information is not revealed and not accessed by anybody outside the function, outside that class. So you need some access specifier in order to communicate with the class. That is, mostly objects are used there to communicate with the class. So that is called encapsulation. So unless there is no proper entity, you cannot allow any of the members inside the class to get accessed by the outsiders. Next is inheritance. So this is very interesting feature. The capability of a class to derive properties and characteristics from another class is called inheritance. So the process by which one class can acquire the properties of objects of another class. So creating a new class from an existing class, that we can refer as, the old class can be referred as base class, parent class or subclass, and the derived class is called as new class, child class or the inherited subclass. So the main benefit is reusability here. That is, when you are deriving the new class will have its own attributes and characters in addition to the base class attributes. So the new class can have its own functionality. It can also inherit the base features that are available in its base class. So it will have added functionality to its class. Next is polymorphism. As the term says, it is a Greek term, and in general we say that different behavior in different situation is referred as polymorphism. So it means the ability to take more than one form, and it can have any kind of derivations like operator overloading, function overloading, that is exhibiting different behavior in different instances. So single name can perform different types of tasks, so that with a man, for example, the concept of redefining is a man can be a father, a husband or an employee. So based on the situation, the role is being taken. So that is the concept of polymorphism. So here two more examples we can refer. For adding two number, operation will generate, the plus operator can be used and it will generate sum of two numbers in the case of integers. Whereas if you have characters or strings, the same will be used to add two string values, which means combining two values. Example, hello and world. If you try to add them, it will become a single string like hello world. Next is dynamic binding, also known as late binding. So this refers to the process of linking the function call unto the code that has to be executed in response to the call. So this is not known until the time of runtime. When you execute the program, when you use that procedure call, then it will go and call the defined function of that name and that code will start execution. Next is message passing. So objects can communicate with one another by sending and receiving messages. Here the major thing is we have to use object. Unless object is not there, memory is not allocated. Then we have a dot operator and then followed by the message, and inside that you can also have information. So the major three parameters are object, message and information in order to communicate with one another. So the advantages of object-oriented programming is through inheritance, we can reduce the repetition of code and we can extend the use of existing class also. So from this working modules, we can communicate with one another. So if you go for a large module, a huge project, we need not write the program from the scratch every time. because wherever we require that functionality, we can just access it using the function call. And the one thing is we have to make it globally accessible. So we should give us access specifier as public so that whenever and wherever we require that code, that portion to execute, we can just call them. So this will save the development time and increase our productivity. Then one more thing is data hiding. So this helps the programmer to build a secure program. So unless we don't have a proper object of that class, we cannot access any of its members outside the class. So the data centered design approach we have here, and it is in the implementable form. So we can map the objects into the problem domain to the program. It is also easy to partition the work based on the project and objects. So we can also upgrade them from small system to large system, and software complexity also managed easily. Thank you.